On the day Richard Doyle retired, the employees applauded before he even finished speaking. 42 years in business, a family company, second-generation leadership. Words like that floated naturally around warehouses and catered lunch trays, while forklift engines hummed faintly in the background. Martin Doyle stood beside his father near the loading dock office, wearing the expression people use when they know cameras are pointed at them. Richard lifted a small ring of brass keys. "The company's in good hands," he said. Then he handed them to Martin. More applause. Across the room, Evan Doyle smiled automatically because everyone else was smiling too. A few people looked toward him afterward, briefly uncertain. Evan had worked there nearly as long as Martin. Some probably assumed they would run the place together. Instead, Richard crossed the floor and shook Evan's hand firm, warm, public. "You'll be fine," he said quietly. At the time, Evan even nodded. That became the part he hated remembering most, not the decision, the fact that he helped make it comfortable for everyone else. Martin inherited a company, even inherited freedom disguised as dismissal. Neither understood that immediately. For the first year afterward, they still had dinner together every few Sundays. Their father spoke constantly about continuity. Martin repeated phrases he'd heard growing up. Steady growth. Relationships matter. No need to reinvent things. Evan mostly listened. Whenever he suggested changes, logistics software, regional expansion, inventory automation, Richard would become visibly patient in the way older men sometimes do when they believe they're tolerating intelligence instead of resisting it. "You think too fast," his father once told him over steak and potatoes. It sounded like criticism. It also sounded a little like fear. 3 months later, Evan accepted a consulting contract in Cincinnati and left. No dramatic exit. He cleaned out his office himself on a Thursday evening after most employees had gone home. Martin helped him carry 2 boxes to the parking lot. "You angry?" Martin asked, even thought about it honestly before answering. "No," he said, which was true then. The anger arrived later. Martin discovered something unpleasant almost immediately after taking over. Their father had not handed him authority. He had handed him expectations. Employees still called Richard before making major decisions. Vendors compared Martin's pricing strategies to how your dad used to handle things. Older supervisors smiled at him with encouragement that felt dangerously close to doubt. Meanwhile, Richard hovered constantly without officially returning, correcting, advising. Watching Martin began staying later every night. At first, Evans assumed his brother loved it. Years later, he realized Martin had simply been trapped first. The company declined slowly enough for everyone to deny it. A lost account here, delayed payments there. Competitors modernizing faster. Richard Rich kept insisting the market would settle back down. Martin repeated it publicly long after he stopped believing it privately. Meanwhile, Evans' consulting work became an actual business, smaller than Doyle Industrial Supply, but cleaner, faster, adaptable in ways the family company never allowed itself to become. He hired younger analysts, invested in regional distribution software, took risks Richard would have called irresponsible. For the first time in his life, nobody introduced him as Richard Doyle's younger son. The relief of that frightened him a little. 5 years after the retirement ceremony, Martin called him after midnight, not drunk, not emotional, just tired in a way Evan recognized immediately. "We're meeting with creditors Friday," Martin said. "I thought you should know." Evan sat quietly at his kitchen table after the call ended. There was no satisfaction in it. Only the strange ache that comes when something you expected to fail actually does. The conference room overlooked the warehouse floor where both brothers had worked summers as teenagers. Martin looked older than 43. Richard looked furious in the directionless way aging men sometimes do when reality stops respecting experience. 3 people from the bank sat across from them reviewing folders. Then Evan walked in beside representatives from Halbrook Capital. Richard's expression changed first. Confusion, then calculation, then understanding. Halbrook had quietly acquired controlling interest in a critical portion of the company's restructuring debt 2 months earlier, even had not orchestrated the collapse. But he had recognized the opportunity before anyone else in the family allowed themselves to believe collapse was possible. For the next hour, lawyers spoke mostly to him. Bank representatives deferred to him. Financial projections were handed to him. Operational questions were directed toward him. At one point, Richard attempted interrupting an explanation about liquidation exposure. The lead attorney responded politely without even looking up. "Mr. Doyle, Evans Group will make that determination." The room went still afterward. Not dramatic, just unmistakable. Authority had moved, and everyone present knew it. Later that evening, Martin found Evan alone near the rear loading bays. The warehouse smelled like sawdust and cold metal. Neither spoke immediately. Finally, Martin leaned against a stack of unopened inventory. "You were always better at this," he said, even looked out across the darkened floor. He remembered being 19 years old there, remembered wanting their father to notice every extra hour he worked, every idea. Every improvement, the feeling seemed embarrassingly distant now. That's not why he picked you, Evan answered. Martin laughed once, softly. No, he admitted. I know. Inside the office above them, the lights finally shut off one by one. For the first time in decades, neither brother moved to follow their father upstairs.